Huh. For a fanfic that ships Twilight and Spider-Man, it's actually pretty good.
You serious?
Life's been kind of rough for Spider-Man lately. His uncle's dead, his girlfriend's dead, his last movie wasn't that great, and Sony won't let him play with his friends. It really couldn't get any worse. That is, until he's accidentally summoned into Ponyville one day and has to start anew in a land filled with tiny horses, which he has become for some reason. Not only that, the Green Goblin has stolen Discord's god powers, somehow, and threatens to take over the universe. So now, Peter must save the day and assume his new identity as Spider-Man. Oh god, that name does not roll off the tongue at all. Ugh. I get the pun and everything, but I am not saying that again. Not only that, this story is also filled with epic boss battles, prophecies, underwear jokes, intense character moments, revealing outfits, and it just keeps going on and on and on. Holy, there's a lot of stuff here. Now you might be thinking to yourself, wow, this sounds really stupid. And you'd be right. But you have to remember, this is a Spider-Man crossover. A franchise where he once turned into a giant pregnant spider and sold his wife to the devil. I mean, in comparison, this fanfic isn't that weird. For a story that is really kind of stupid, it's surprisingly very emotionally driven for the most part. I mean, half the time, Spider-Man's doing his hero thing, saving people, fighting bad guys, yada yada yada. And half the time, it's a cute slice of life story with Peter coming to grips with his past and accepting his future. We see him make friends with all the characters and having an impact on their lives. One of my favorite parts was when Rainbow Dash became envious of Peter's fame, like in that one episode, and challenged him to a contest, just like that other episode. However, before things get out of hand, Peter's able to explain to her that being a hero is not about the glory, but about doing the right thing even when the world is against you. It's a nice subtle moment that stays true to the characters and builds a bond between them. There's also some nice moments between Peter and Luna, who've both had experiences with dark forces possessing their souls, and the chemistry between the two feel rather organic. Now, one of the biggest complaints this fanfic gets is that Peter Parker is portrayed as a Marty Stew, or Sue, whatever you prefer. And you know what? They're kind of right. He's got the classic tragic backstory, everybody starts to crush on him, and he's incredibly smart and charismatic. But this is not a problem with the fanfiction. It's a problem with the source material, because this is exactly how he's portrayed in the comic books. So you're saying this is Stan Lee's fault? Yeah, it kind of is.
Who do you think you are, you stupid
who's that? I believe that is an angry fanboy. Why is he here? Well, you did just insult Stan Lee. I'm not saying he did a bad thing. Peter's a fine protagonist. How so? You see, one of the most critical attributes of a Marty Sue is that they are unchallenged by the narrative. I mean, the very concept of a Sue character is that they are so perfect that nothing can stand in their way. When this happens, the audience has no reason to care about them, and therefore they become boring. Peter Parker, in both the source material and this fanfiction, is constantly being challenged, whether it be by the godlike supervillains he faces, or his own crippling self-loathing. Despite all of his great attributes, the audience can still see him as an underdog. And in my opinion, the author here manages to capture this character very well. Is he, gone yet? Yeah, he's gone. But he'll be back. And in greater numbers. Ah, great. Let's continue, shall we? The shipping is pretty decent. The story builds it up naturally, with Peter first being very resistant to the idea of dating a horse, but he gets used to the idea later, being that he is a horse himself. That being said, the actual shipping is very cute. It's like one of the most loveliest, doviest ships I've ever seen. They make out a lot, they have a lot of intense conversation, they have some cute banter here and there. But what makes this a good ship? Well, Twilight and Peter are both eggheads. However, Peter is the funny one who can lighten the mood, while Twilight is the boring, the straight man who has to keep him in check. That sounds rather familiar. One thing though, if it weren't for the blatant spoilers on who would be shipped with who, I don't think I would have known who was going to be paired with Peter. I say this because a lot of the characters admit to having a crush on him early on, including Fluttershy, Rainbow Dash, Derpy, Luna, and hell, even Spitfire. It felt like one of those BioWare games where anyone could have been a potential love interest if the characters played their cards right. Also, the romance is never tested in this fanfiction. After it's initiated, their relationship is never put through the ringer. It seems like the author is saving that for the sequels though, and considering all the other drama the author adds in, adding relationship issues would have been pushing it. Speaking of which, there's one more thing I want to talk about. I mentioned before that this was an emotionally driven story. However, that also works against it sometimes. Let us talk about emotions, or feels, if you're so inclined. There are a lot of feels in this fanfiction. And not just in the romance, but in the numerous interactions throughout the story. Lots of feels. As in almost too many. In case you're wondering, yes. A changeling, a creature that literally eats love for breakfast, is telling you that there are too many emotions here! And not in that, oh my god, my feels sort of way. No. I'm telling you straight up, this fic gets way too freaking emotional. I have never seen this much crying before. I've read a lot of fanfics in my time. I've read a lot of books in my time. I have not seen as much crying as I've ever seen in this fanfic before. I mean, for crying out loud, people. How many times do we have to talk about his dead uncle? Seriously! It seems like that's brought up all the time, and every time we cry about it. Oh, how about his dead girlfriend? Let's talk about that too, huh? Yeah, let's cry about it. Here's your little game you can play. Every time somebody cries, take a drink. Because guess what? You know what's gonna happen? You're gonna die. That's why you're gonna freaking die from how many times people freaking cry. Hey, we have to have one of these special crying moments all the fucking time. Like, hey Trixie, how's your life going? Oh, it sucks? Well, let's cry about it. Hey Applejack, how are your dead parents doing? Alright, they're dead. Let's cry about it. Hey, Babsy, you there. Yeah, you're in this story too. Let me hear about your f***ing troubles. And let's cry about it. Oh, hey Luna, you're here too, huh? Oh, you got banished and were exiled and you're all lonely and stuff? Well, guess what? The crying has been doubled. Oh my god. Crying. So much crying! I guess what I'm trying to say is that the author lays it on a bit thick. I'm not saying these emotional scenes are poorly written in any way. It's just that he has one almost every single chapter. It becomes exhausting. And frankly, I think, if anything, he should focus on pacing himself a little bit more. Less is more. You know? Does this ruin the fanfic? Not really. I mean, emotions and feels are all very subjective things, so people will react differently to them. As for me, I just found all of the constant crying slightly irritating after a while. Despite its weird and sometimes nonsensical story, Spiders and Magic is one hell of a ride. The characters are likable and the action is intense and easy to follow. And besides the fact that it gets almost way too emotional for its own good, it doesn't take away from the fact that I had a great time reading it. If you're willing to stomach the idea of Spider-Man and My Little Pony crossover ship fic, then you're going to have a fine time with this. Hello everybody, 32 here, and I'm here to announce that starting now, we are taking suggestions. You heard right, folks. Now you have the opportunity to tell us what you want to see. All you have to do is leave a comment. You've done 2 reviews, and you're already out of ideas? Oh, I have plenty of ideas, Joel. I just want to see what the members of the Changeling Empire want to see. You have 8 subscribers. I wouldn't exactly call that an empire. 9 subscribers. 9. And that's because you think too small. Sure, we only have a handful of followers today, but those numbers will grow, and soon we will take over this pathetic YouTube, and all will bow to our glory. See what I gotta work with here, people? Ay, ay, ay.